It is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. Some huge topics this week. Okay, topic number one, dressing room bust-ups. So, Robbie, you've had a few bust-ups in your time. You've had a few occasions where you've fallen out with teammates. We've talked about the importance of team spirit, but can bust-ups sometimes be good for a team?
Yes, they can. I've had a couple of occasions when I've had a couple of fights, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Fights?
Yeah, Fred.
Really? Proper fights?
Well, not proper fights, just altercations. There was one with Nicol Vasson, who was a goalkeeper at Birmingham. You know, because of my banter and dressing room camaraderie, I look for any little fault in anybody. And I remember Nicol struggled to kick the ball. You know, over
He's a footballer who struggled to kick the ball.
Yeah, but he was a good goalkeeper, Nicol, nice fella as well. On this one occasion, I just kept on and on and on, and we were in the change room, and I said something about he couldn't. Was it a gale force wind today or something? I kept going on. Anyway, he stood up and he come over to me. I'm sitting on the bench, and he's grabbed me by the throat. So I thought, oh no, what do I do? He was 6'6". I was sitting down. Wow. So as I've got up, I've put my head up to his chin, and he cut his lip. And then a bit of an altercation.
Did you headbutt him? Was it an headbutt?
Well, it was like, when you're sitting down, he was towered over me. As I've got up, I've hit my head up and hit him on the chin.
Did you quiff go up his nose?
I didn't have a quiff as long. We had to see the manager, and it was Steve Bruce. And in a way, I knew, because of my position at the football club at the time, that nothing would happen to me, because I was player of the year. I was a favourite, fans' favourite, and I was in a strong position. And maybe I went a bit too far, because I even go up the stairs to see the manager. I was winding him up, saying, well, me or you? Yeah. I'm not going to play with you again. Still winding him up, and it all got sorted out. That was one occasion where banter went a bit too far from my point of view. And then Clinton Morrison, we had a fight over a mobile phone.
What?
Yeah, but...
Did he have more data than you?
Because as a footballer, you always wanted the new gadget. You always wanted the next best thing. So these phones come out, and I said to Clinton, I can get you one of those phones. So he said, oh, brilliant. Anyway, I got him the phone. It was a couple of £100. And then a couple of weeks passed, and I said, just bring us that £200 in, will you, Clinton? And he went, all right. And it didn't come. So one morning, we're having breakfast, and I said, listen, bring me the money now. I'm getting a bit fed up. He went, no, what are you going to do about it? So I launched at him over the table, and the table collapsed in the canteen, and we had a little scuffle. And that, but
was there any punches thrown?
Well, like a scuffle.
Or was it just a bit of a wrestle?
But Clinton's a great fella, get on, and that probably cleared the air between us. Yeah. So sometimes you have a little scuffle, they bring people together.
In your experience in football, how common was it for teammates to actually come to blows?
I've seen a few fights. Yeah. I'm not going to mention names, but yeah, come to blows.
Come on,
I've seen managers.
Give us a name, Rob.
I've seen managers.
Just one.
I can't. I've seen managers grabbing players by the throat. Wow. Against the wall.
But we don't know who it is, so what's the point? Why are you telling us? Tell us who it is.
I can't.
Come on,
Robbie.
I'm not allowed to. The producer's telling me I'm not allowed to. But on the other hand, it's happened to me where I believe, there were stories about me when I went to Derby County and had a nice car. And people forget, when I went to Derby, I'd been successful in the Premier League for a number of years, 10 years in the Premier League. So when I turned up at Derby, I had a nice car. And when Derby was struggling, there was somebody in the changing room who were telling stories.
Who was it?
Honestly, I do not know, but saying, Robbie Savage, who does he think he is? He comes in his dressing room with X, Y and Z, and he's driving around in a £160,000 car. I'm just putting that out there.
One car?
It was on finance. It was on finance. It was a couple £100 a month. It wasn't. I didn't pay that much for the car. It was on finance. So I've had jealous teammates, I believe. And I think there's a point, Matthew, in dressing rooms where there is a line, because you can get to a point where you would feel that you were bullying somebody, bullying a teammate. And that's where I always stop, because in the dressing rooms, and Freddie will probably elaborate on this, that there's certain characters where you can go for, and which might sound wrong, and there's certain characters that can take a little bit, but then you've got to step back.
Yeah.
And at times, people might have thought in the dressing room I was a bully, but I wasn't. I was just trying to get the team spirit, the togetherness, but it does end in bust-ups sometimes, and name-calling. And in dressing rooms, and in any other walk of life, if the language used in dressing rooms to each other, the obscenities thrown at each other, if that was in a normal, everyday work environment, you'd be sacked.
The HR department would get
If there's
involved.
an HR department,
But in cricket, I'm guessing that when you go on those long tours, you can go stir crazy. You're stuck together with a group of people for weeks at a time.
by the end of it, you can't stand the sight of people.
Right.
You can't. And then what happens is you spend time with different groups of people. There's people that you get on with. Like for me, it was Steve Armisen and a couple of others. And I spend all my time with Steve. And then some of them I just see when we practice or play. I don't want to spend time with them. But in the cricket culture, there was never... I remember like seeing videos of football managers and they go around shouting and screaming. And that wasn't really cricket. You spend so much time with people. I once had a bit of a bust-up with Peter Moores, who he took over as England coach after Duncan Fletcher. And I love Peter Moores and I like working under him. And we was in India, and Sahara were the big sponsor, and they've got this like village, and they put a party on just for the England team. And we were sat there, and I could smell money. There was money knocking about. So the waiter come over and he said, "Would you like a drink?" I said, "Yes, please. Could I have a bottle of 96 Dom Perignon, please?" And he just said, "Yeah." Oh, hang on. Whoa, here we go. We're in here, lads. And then he brought the Dom Perignon. Me and Steve Armisen, army drinking Dom Perignon. It's like teaching a dog to sing this. He's there, right? And he's drinking Dom Perignon with his finger up. And then we had one bottle, we had two bottles, and I think KP joined us, and then Peter Moores joined us, who was the coach. Then Hugh Morris, who ran the ECB at the time, joined us, and we got through a case of Dom Perignon. So I asked for another bottle. He said, "Sorry, sir, we've only got Moet." I said, "Oh, rummy now, I'm going to have to rough it." So they brought a bottle of Moet, and then it was left. There was me, Harmy, Peter Moores, and Hugh Morris. And we got into like a heated discussion about something, the state of cricket or whatever's going on. And Peter Moores, I said something, and Peter Moores said to me, "If I had £1 for every time you said that, I'd be a rich man." So I turned around to Pete and said, "If I had £1 for every time you put your hand on your hip when you're addressing us, I'd be very rich." Right? He had this little pause, and I really liked Pete. And then, what I can relate of it, we went at each other. Not like fighting, but it got a bit heated between the two of us. And then Hugh and Army stepped in and went to bed. Woke up the next morning, and then you think, "Oh, I was a bit dusty," and we're getting the bus early, and I'm thinking, "Oh no, I had a row with Pete last night." I thought I've had one coach I can't get on with, and now Peter Moores, I really like him, and everyone's getting on the bus, and Mooresy was at front as everyone's getting on the bus, and I was walking towards him, and he had the biggest grin on his face as I was walking to him. And we didn't even say anything. We just nodded at each other, shook our heads, and then our relationship was back on track. It was great.
I had a phone call once, and I was in my car. And again, for obvious reasons, I can't say who it is. It was a former associate offering me out in a car park. I said, "Listen, let's put this to bed, and I'll meet you in a car park of your choice." So I've had that.
You could choose the venue.
I said, "What are you talking about?"
NCP.
Absolute nonsense. But the dressing room, Matthew, is a place where, I've seen it all. Players hammering the manager. Next minute, you go to the training ground, they're like, "Don't say a word."
But I would have thought the
That happens
manager
all the
is
time.
somebody trying to keep the peace, trying to keep all of the people in his team on an even keel. But you've given us a couple of examples where the manager gets involved. He's grabbed a player by the throat or got grabbed by the throat by one of the players. How does that work?
No, I've never seen a manager get grabbed by the throat. I've seen.
Well, Joey Barton told a story on A League of Their Own with Mark Hughes. We had a beef with Mark Hughes and walked in the dressing room and locked the door behind him and said, "Come on then."
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how much truth in that, but that's what Joey said. I wouldn't do that to Mark Hughes, would you?
No.
A bit fiery.
So, mate, dressing room bust-ups, I think it happens all the time, and I've seen fights on training grounds. And, and it happens all the time, but depending on who you are, and if you're liked, it won't be reported to an extent. If you're not liked, it gets blown up into out of all proportion. I've nearly got knocked out twice where my banter went too far, or my willingness to get the best out of my teammates went too far. It was... when I was at Derby, I was shocking. I was terrible. The season when we got 11 points, we played Manchester United. I was having a tough time. I was getting hammered off the fans. I was not earning. I think I was one of the highest paid at Derby, and I went in straight as captain. That was a bit, for me, it was a great honour, but a bit embarrassing that these teammates, this team has got this new guy and he's got the armband straight away. Yeah. So I was on the back foot straight away. I was crap, didn't perform, and then played Manchester United at home, and I had a great game. No, I did have a good game, world class, in fact, you could say.
Did you touch the ball or just run around with someone?
I touched the ball, actually, not many times. And I remember Andy Todd, who's a very good friend of mine, who is a tough guy, great fella, tough guy, and he tried to let the ball run out. A player nipped him, passed it to Ronaldo, they won the game 1-0. So after the game, because I had a good game, I was thinking, I had to go to Toddy for everybody. And he got up and he threw his water bottle at the wall, smashed everywhere, and his eyes had gone. I thought, oh dear, I'm in trouble here. And he got in the shower. I was next to him. He didn't speak to me. I rung on the way home, didn't answer his phone. And on the Monday, he said, I've calmed down. He said, if that was anybody else, he said, I'd have levered you. He said, because it's you and I know what you like, don't do it again. And then Big Darren Moore. Remember Darren Moore?
Yeah.
6'5", centre half, strongest, biggest man in the world. Yeah. Blackburn for Derby once again. Had a good game. Coming after the game, I said, Moro, why we've got beat? Why are you letting the ball bounce? Just don't let the ball bounce, mate. And he's sitting next to me, and he stood up, and he looked over at me, and he went, pointed at me, he went, I'll see you Monday. Oh, I thought, oh no. Anyway, I tried ringing him over the weekend. Nothing. And he's come. And he's.
Did he not say see you next Tuesday?
Yeah. And he's come in, and again he said, "You've apologised. I'll accept it." But again, if it was anybody else.
But you're big enough to say, in table tennis, I don't think.
But it all kicks off, doesn't it? Oh, there we go. There'll be some fighting stories here. Ooh, it flicked the net. Oh, here we go. They're piling
Edge of the
it's a
table.
rumble. There's Douglas. Oh, he's hard as nails.
Good to
Carl
see it.
Preem, what a fighter.
Yeah. I think the only time I saw two people almost coming to blows was Preen.
Hey!
And do you remember Chen Xinhua?
Yes.
Chinese player, came over to England, married an English woman.
Pencil
Robbie
grip.
shaking his head.
I know.
He didn't have a penhold
No.
grip. Played with the shake hands grip. Pimples on the backhand. Good for
hands grip. Oh.
Yeah, so you got the penholder grip, often used in China, and then you got the shake hands grip, the one that you used against me in the challenge.
Right.
But him and Preen had a falling out over a team selection. This is as bad as it got in table tennis. Preen called him a chicken head, and Chen Xinhua stormed out of the room. That was it.
Is that it?
I've never seen a fight. I've never seen people come to blows, except for once at the Reading Closed, circa 1982, when Andy Wellman and Big Jim Stokes
Oh, you don't have
had
to
a
tell
fight.
me. I
in the
remember, Matthew. I remember. You don't have to tell me.
But we didn't see any of that. In cricket, have you ever seen players going at each other physically?
Yeah, not really. Verbally, and then it's got a bit spilt over. I think Javid Miandad once tried to hit someone with a bat.
That was on the pitch, wasn't it?
That was on the pitch. I got dealt with by Nasser Hussain once. This is an embarrassing story. We had a team night out in South Africa in 2000. It was in this restaurant, and it was like a team do, so everyone's just going to get on it. So we've all got smashed. It was like the restaurant's empty now. It's just the team, and everyone's messing about. I think someone fell through a table, and all sorts are happening. And I've been needling Nasser all night because he was good sport needling Nasser at times. And then, but
Was he quite serious?
yeah, and he's got a bit of a temper on him, and he didn't know how to take me. I was going to say then, but he doesn't now. And it got to the point, surprise, I was very drunk. I'm probably about 10 sambucas in and 6 tequilas and the red wine and the beer. And I'm on this couch, and I've needled him too far. And he jumped on top of me, right? He's on top of me, and he's pinned me down, and I couldn't move. I was so drunk and not sure where I was, and I was looking up at Nasser Hussain, who was frothing at the mouth. His eyes had gone. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get punched here by Nasser Hussain. This is so embarrassing. And he'd gone. And another one I saw go once was Michael Atherton. Michael Atherton. Yeah, it was brilliant. Remember, we played a famous game. I was 12th man in Karachi. And we ended up beating Pakistan. It was in the dark. And then afterwards, you have the match presentation. So all the teams are stood in front of this ceremony. I'm stood next to Goffey having a laugh. Michael Atherton stood in front of us. And you know the game we play in the gym, the shorts game, whip the pants down?
Yeah.
Well, Mike stood there just watching the presentation party, and me and Goffey are deliberating whether we should do him, because we can see his cord's undone, and we're thinking, oh, this would be brilliant, this would be brilliant. And it was who's going to do it first. Goffey went forward, he pulled his pants around his ankles, he's got little Mike hanging out, he's got no undies on, because he's got the lining in his shorts.
No.
So he pulls his pants up, and he's like looking round, he's like so embarrassed, and he turns round to Goffey, and me and Goffey are in fits of laughter. He turns around to Goffey and says, if you ever do that, I will effing kill you. It's like, that's Mike Atherton. Right? And then me and Goffey just laughing. We walked back to the dressing room and fair play to others. He came up to that Goffey and both of us and says, lads, I'm sorry. I just had a sense of humour failure for a minute. But it was the best bagging I've ever seen.
You know what? You nearly got me on that when I was playing in that challenge match. I didn't have any undies on. I only had the shorts.
You're too busy fist pumping, Matthew, in that. The final one from me was our Christmas do at Leicester. You know the Secret Santa?
Yeah.
So the lads were going to have a Secret Santa. Anyway, it didn't happen. So we go for our Christmas do. We're all sitting down for a meal. And then all of a sudden, we had Dennis Wise at Leicester. He didn't have the best time. You know, he's a fantastic player, great captain for Chelsea and a good fella. This is the thing. We got on really well. And then we're sitting down for our Christmas dinner. And all of a sudden, Dennis got up onto the stage and he said, right, everybody, I've bought a Secret Santa for Sav. So this is like, well, hang on a minute. It wasn't supposed to happen. So he said, yeah, I just wanted to get a Secret Santa for Sav. So he'd bought a sex toy. Yep. And you know the little kits you get from the club shops where you stick them in your window, it's a miniature kit. So what he'd done, he got the Leicester kit, the miniature one, and put it on the sex toy, and he held it up, and he had like blonde kind of stuff.
Quite good, that, to be fair.
I like
That's
it.
quite good.
And he put, to be fair, Sav, I've got you this present because you're the only expletive in a Leicester kit. And I looked at him and thought, well, that's a bit out of order.
Yeah.
Harsh.
That could have been very funny.
Yeah, but
That could have been very funny, but it ruined
Were the
it.
lads wetting themselves?
I think so. And it was, for me, it was I was embarrassed. So obviously I thought, I'm not having that. Bang, out of order. So I can't remember what happened. So anyway, I was raging. I wanted to fight him. I wanted to have a fight with Dennis Wise, and then Matt Elliott split it all up, calmed down, and then we were mates again.
So you actually went up and went at him?
Well,
physically?
No, I wanted to. I've said to Matty, yeah, that's bang out of order. I was eating me roast beef, and you know, I was like,
this sounds like a very middle class fight.
But, do you know what I mean? I was like thinking, I've got to get him back. What can I do?
Did he stick a second one on for the nose?
But that would have gone in all the papers, and we calmed down, and we were mates, and we seen each other on holiday. So
if you were a football manager, if you were the head of the England cricket team, and you were overseeing a group of young men, would you want them to have complete serenity, no fights, no bust-ups, or do you think banter and the occasional argument is actually quite a healthy thing?
No, I want a bit of fire in them. I want a bit of fire in them. I want a bit of competition in the team for places. I want them to be comfortable. I want to have some fire in their bellies. The problem is, like with cricket, you know, when a team's losing and then all of a sudden everyone's falling out, and then you have these clear the air meetings. And nobody says, nobody says, it's like we're clearing area.
Yeah.
And
So true.
I witnessed one in football, right?
True.
I did a bit of training. I was in the pub one day, and there was all my stories were in the pub, and there was a few football managers. There was Big Sam, Phil Brown, I think Peter Reid was in there, and Stam Tennant, who was at Burnley at the time.
good fella, Stan.
And we've had a few drinks, and I wanted to start training the next day or the day after. And I said, well, come and train with us. So I had the pick of like Bolton, wherever, and I picked Burnley because I like Stan. So I turned up the first day, I drove to Turfmoor, and he said, come in the office, Fred. So I've sat there, he gets a packet of fags out. He says, you want a cigarette? I said, well, I don't really smoke, but I'll have the old one. He says, Fred, have a cigarette. So I said, I'll go on then, I'll have a cigarette. So we're in his office, smoking. And he said, Fred, tell me about cricket. I said, what? He said, tell me about cricket. I spend all day with footballers. I want a conversation about something else. Tell me about cricket. Tell me about Tendulkar. So we sat in the office for an hour. I got through a packet. And he says, come on then, we'll go training now. So we turn up. And I know like academies like United and City have these massive places. This is like a tin hut on a park. And we go in. He says, right, go in there with lads, they'll look after you. So I sit in the room with the lads, and they got me the worst kit out of Horse Property. I'll go with it. And then they're going through a few problems. So in the dressing room, everyone's saying, oh, the manager's this, the manager's that. And I'll never forget, Robbie Blake.
Yeah.
He was their big signing. They paid a lot of money for him. He was having either not playing well or carrying on a bit. And he's saying, oh, stands this, stands that. When he comes in and we'll have this meeting, I'm going to tell him, I'm going to do this, that and the other. Then they're all jumping in. Yeah, we'll do this. Stan walks in. He says, anybody got something to say? Nobody said anything, right? And then he says, right, you lot, we're playing bad, we're doing this, that. He just goes around pointing at people. I felt a bit awkward, a bit uncomfortable. And he turns around to Robbie and says, and you, we all pee in the same pot at this club. You need to start peeing in our pot. And he's just sat there, didn't say, oh, goes through his tactics, walks out. Nobody says, oh, as soon as he left the room, oh, I was going to say this to him, I was going to say that to him. It's like, nobody said up.
That's one of the...
You want to
I've been
dress
in
up?
meetings in cricket where it's exactly the same. They've all got these beefs. You say, well, what is it? Nothing.
That's one of the reasons why I don't believe I played for Wales, because John Toshak come in. I believe he was quite critical towards us as a team under Mark Hughes when we done ever so well. He was a pundit on the TV and he had the right of his opinion. It was his opinion. And then I remember he took over and football had developed, the nutrition, the training, the sports science. It developed, and Mark Hughes developed it with us. So we had all the food was brilliant. And remember Mr. Toshak come in and changed the food instantly. It was like fried bananas and the chicken was dry. So anyway, all the lads were saying, hang on, we've gone from like 10 choices, all this catered for us, to one choice. Ridiculous. And there was big personalities in that Wales squad. So I said, right, come on, boys, we've got to say something here. This is unacceptable. So we had a meeting. John's had a conversation. He said, anybody got anything to say? So I went, yeah, me, John. Mr. Toshak, boss, whatever I called him.
Gaffer.
I went, the food, the game's moved on. Yeah. We can't go from what we were having to this. One shot, one choice. People might think this is bizarre. Listen to this.
No, I
but
get
it's true.
that. And the chicken was dry.
Yeah, no sauce.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, Robbie, no, not
No
sauce.
sauce, no.
Oh, no.
Dreadful.
As an athlete, Matthew, because you're training hard every day, you've got to repair.
Did you pull through?
The food's very important.
Was you all right?
I was all right. I put my hand up and I said, listen.
Well, at least you had the courage to do that.
I had the courage to do it, and do you know what?
You should have had courage to eat a dry chicken.
Without
Do you know what? I was the one who spoke up, and Fred's alluded to. I was the one who spoke up. Nobody else said a word.
Bottlers.
Nobody else said a word. And I'm looking round after thinking, hang on a minute.
Was
right?
Toshak big enough to take the criticism?
Well, I didn't play for Wales ever again.
Well,
Because over a chicken.
Well, not over a chicken, but
I get
obviously
it.
I was the one who stood up and spoke
do you know
for
what?
the group, and I wasn't even the captain.
Do you know what? I joke about it, but I used to kick off like you've never seen about the food. Because it started off, you could have what you want. Fridays at Old Trafford, Fish and Chip Friday, for your lunch. And then all of a sudden, these dietitians came in and ruined it. Dry chicken. We used to call it sawdust chicken at Old Trafford. This chicken would come in, it'd be like a chicken.
What, chicken?
And then they sprinkle, not a sauce, but they sprinkle a bit of tandoori on it. You'd have to drink like a litre of water to get it down. I used to kick off, and it sounds daft and it sounds terrible. If you've had 2.5 hours in a field, just stood there doing that, when you come in, you want something to eat that you like. Don't give me pasta. Don't give me a chicken. Put some sauce on it. Put some sauce on it and a few carbs. Give me a potato.
the nutritionist didn't get on top of your Lord's diet, did they?
No, that was untouchable. Because if it had carried on, I'd have been one stop away from getting a delivery. Getting a delivery. But just to finish my Burnley story, I didn't say this, just on the football thing. Yeah. We then went training, I scored the winner in training. That was it.
You scored the winner in training?
Yeah, just slipped one under Beresford. And then Stan then got everyone together, and he said, this is how bad you lot are. A 2-bit cricketer has scored the winner in training.
The England football team, Capello came in and he banned mobile phones from the dinner table. He banned ketchup. And that was where the rebellion came from in South Africa, wasn't it? During the World Cup.
Like little things.
Yeah. Amazing.
Little things, ketchup.
But dressing rooms are so important. So important. It's the hub of anything. You will get falling out. But the thing is with sportsmen, you will probably, as Freddie's alluded to with Mr. Moores on the bus, you have an argument. If you have a fight, that's it. Move on. You're best of mates the next time.
Sounds to me you want energy in a dressing room. You want people to be open and honest with each other, but people to be big enough to take criticism without it becoming a huge falling out.
It's like a marriage, innit? A marriage. Oh, your marriage, you have the odd bust up, don't you?
Odd.
But
the odd one.
No, but that means you care. That means you care. You're passionate about something.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. This is BBC 5 Live.
With the BBC News on 5 Live, I'm Rob Watts. The Environment Secretary, Michael Gove, has suggested the government could support lifting the 1% pay cap for public sector workers. He says ministers should respect the integrity of independent groups reviewing salaries. More than 180 high-rise blocks in England have now failed safety tests being carried out on cladding following the Grenfell Tower fire. They're in 51 council areas. Police are holding a 30-year-old man on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving after a 16-year-old girl was killed in South London. She was hit by a car in Croydon in the early hours of this morning. 6 other teenagers were injured. And there's confusion over the government's decision to withdraw from an agreement that allows some European countries to fish in UK waters. Officials in Brussels say the London Fisheries Convention has already been replaced by EU law. Now the sport with Hugh Wozencroft.
Thank you. England's women secured their second win of the Cricket World Cup as they beat Sri Lanka by 7 wickets in Taunton. Sarah Taylor hit 74 not out in what was her first half century since she's returned to the sport following a break due to anxiety issues. She feels England are finding their feet after their opening defeat to India.
We've just kind of got a little bit of wind behind us and we're going with it, and I think I guess it's a nice thing. It's almost like get the loss out of the way and then hopefully we can continue that. But our feet are quite firmly grounded, so we know that we've got a good test against South Africa next game, and still some areas to work on, which is really good, and we're winning with areas to go to work on. So it's actually it's quite a nice place to be in.
And there are also wins today for South Africa, India and Australia. Andy Murray says he is fit to defend his Wimbledon title. The world number 1 missed 2 exhibition matches this week due to a sore hip, but he says he has no concerns ahead of opening his proceedings on centre court tomorrow against Kazakhstan's Alexander Bublik.
I'll be fine to play the event and play 7 matches. I mean, providing things can happen, obviously, when you're playing. I mean, players have got injured during tournaments, but as I am today, if I feel like I am today, I'd be delighted and have no issues getting through.
And a reminder, we'll have full coverage here on 5 Live and across BBC television and online for the next 2 weeks of Wimbledon. Team Sky rider Geraint Thomas will stay in the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. He finished today's second 203.5-kilometre stage in the leading group, along with his teammate and the defending champion Chris Froome, who survived a fall to finish safely in the pack. Here's more from Simon Brotherton.
Chris Froome's Tour defence nearly came to grief here on day 2 when he was involved in a sizable crash 30 kilometres from the finish in Liège. Last year's runner-up Romain Bardet also went down, but both were able to chase and rejoin the main field by the time they reached the finish, where the German Marcel Kittel won a spectacular mass sprint for the line ahead of the French champion Arnaud Démare and André Greipel, with Mark Cavendish 4th. Geraint Thomas was only momentarily held up by the crash and finished safely in the main field to retain the leader's yellow jersey.
England's Tommy Fleetwood has underlined his credentials ahead of this year's Open Championship in a few weeks. He won golf's French Open in Paris, shooting a final round of 66 to finish 12 under par. That was 1 shot ahead of the American Peter Uihlein. Rio 2016 finalist Adam Jamili may miss August World Championships after Nathaniel Mitchell-Blake won the 200 metres at the British Trials in Birmingham. Jamili was a distant 6th as Mitchell-Blake's time of 20.18 seconds broke the British Championship record. Danny Talbot finished 2nd to guarantee his selection, while Shannon Hilton won the women's 200 metres. Salford Red Devils have moved up to 2nd in Super League with a 36-20 home win over Huddersfield. Tony Clubb scored on his return for Wigan after he had his kidney removed. They beat Widnes 28-12. Flanker Sean O'Brien is free to play in the British and Irish Lions deciding test with New Zealand after he was cleared of dangerous play. West Bromwich Albion have signed Southampton forward Jay Rodriguez for an initial £12 million. And Marc Marquez won MotoGP's German Grand Prix to take a 5-point lead in the championship standings.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
A look at the roads, and in Greater Manchester on the M60 clockwise, there's a lane closed and very slow traffic because of an accident between junction 12, the Eccles interchange, and 13 for Worsley. They're still working on the recovery there. In Cheshire on the M6 southbound, there's queuing traffic because of an earlier broken down vehicle between junction 19 for Knutsford and 18 for Middlewich. All lanes have reopened though. And also on the M6 in Birmingham heading southbound, there's a lane closed and very slow traffic because of an accident between junction 6 with Spaghetti Junction and junction 5 for Castle Bromwich. Travel time through that area is around 40 minutes. Rob Watts, 5 Live Travel.
The successful novelist.
A number of people, large percentage, believe that he must have done it. And I said, not Michael.
A body at the bottom of the staircase.
We saw footprints leading from the stairwell to the washing machine. I mean, there were just so many indicators of a cleanup.
A series of extraordinary events.
They weren't fooling around. They weren't stacking the deck against him.
The core issues are simple, but everything else about this case isn't.
People are
fascinated by it even today.
Beyond Reasonable Doubt, the new podcast phenomenon. Download now at bbc.co.uk/5live.
This is Flintoff, Savage, and the Ping Pong Guy.
Embarrassing moments on and off the field of play. Robbie.
Off the field, I've got a couple on the field. Just a quickie, couple of on the field was getting Justin Edinburgh sent off. That's embarrassing when I look back now. When he clipped my hair, went down too easy. That's embarrassing. That was embarrassing and, regretful. The Wales press conference. Do you remember when I threw Maldini's shirt into a bush?
Is this when you were playing for Reading?
That's the first time I'd heard of you then. That's the first time. No disrespect, but then I remember it.
Actually, you mentioned it. Yeah.
So basically, an interviewer said it'd be a good idea comparing me with Maldini. It was like ridiculous. He was on X amount, I was on hardly anything. I had a Fiesta, he had a Ferrari. It was that comparison. And then at the end of the interview, he said, "Just a good idea. Just toss his shirt into a bush." So I tossed the shirt away. Anyway, I got through out the Welsh squad, didn't I, for it. Bobby Good said, it's unacceptable. You disrespected one of the best ever left-backs ever. And I said, I didn't do it on purpose, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, then we had a press conference the next day. And I was sitting there, and you can watch this on YouTube. I'm sitting there next to Bobby Gould, and it was just the most bizarre, embarrassing moment I've ever been involved in. Looking back now, it looks like I was like 23, 24.
Yeah.
My teeth were horrendous. It looked like I had Botox. My hair, I looked ridiculous when you look back. Look at it looks ridiculous.
What do you think now? Oh, them teeth, that's brilliant, Rob.
But it looks ridiculous. But I'm sitting
Tell you
there.
what, that is a perfect line of teeth, isn't it?
I'm sitting there, and I'm just getting hammered from all angles, and he's Bobby Gould saying, tell him what happened. And I was just sitting there, like, bemused, thinking, this is not really happening. I was embarrassed.
And you're very young, too.
Very young, and it was like, when I got throughout the squad, I would say, I'm not going. And he said to me that, you've got 20 minutes to go, or I'm going to get the police. I'm going to get the police to escort you off the ground.
Police?
Yeah, and this is what I didn't want to say in the press conference, because it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to stitch my manager up, really, in the press conference, saying, the reason why, because you said it, you've got 20 minutes to leave, or I'll get the police to escort you off the grounds.
So you're in an invidious position.
Terrible position. So looking back now, watching it, it's the most embarrassing, cringe-worthy moments. Me in that press conference.
I had a press conference like that after I got done trying to get on a pedal in the West Indies. Yeah. I went in the press conference. I was sat next to Duncan Fletcher, and I remember I walked in, and all the supporters of Army have lined it as I've walked in, and they're all shaking their heads and tutting. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, lads. Hang on a minute. You get hammered all day. You do snakes with beer things. And you're judging me. And I sat down next to Duncan Fletcher.
But a lot of them supported you. I remember at the time, a lot of the England fans were on your side.
But I sat down in the press conference. It was packed. It was live on Sky Sports News. And they're all in there, like the vultures have circled. And I nearly started laughing at the first question, but I thought, just hold it together. Because the reporter said, can you confirm there was a pedalo involved? It was like, what? Can you confirm there's a pedalo involved? And I had the same thing with Duncan Fletcher. They asked Duncan, because he banned me for the next game against Canada. And then someone asked, he said, if it was Australia, would you ban him? And he says, well, it's situations and situations. And just went on. And I said, would you ban me or not? Why am I sat here? Yeah. What's going on? It was the weirdest thing.
What about this one?
Go on.
So I did a book signing. So my first book, Matthew, it was another.
It's horrible when no one turns up in it.
No, I don't know. This is embarrassing for me, embarrassing for the person involved. I forget the person's name. So I had a book signing at Derby County. Yeah, it was a good day. A few people turned up. I'm sitting there, and I'm quite a polite guy. So every person that come for the book signed, you'd put your arm round and smile for the camera phone, whatever, or the photograph. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'd done about 300, 400, 500. Anyway, all went smoothly.
Even the gallery are laughing at that one. Even the people behind.
They're all shaking their head, going, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah, really, yeah. They all brought the crayons.
All went smoothly, and then I got a call off the secretary a week later saying, "Can you come and see us, please?" I said, "Why?" He said, "We had a letter."
Yeah, there's no blue crayons in the back with the book.
We've had a letter. So I said, really? I said, yeah. Anyway, go into the secretary's office, give me this letter. So I get it out, started reading the letter, and basically it was claimed by a person that in the book signing, when they had a photo with me, because I put my arm around them, clipped them on the ear, I made them go deaf. And they were good. They were good. They wanted money. So basically, I'm saying this can't be for real. This is somebody taking the mick. Anyway,
you made them deaf by touching them.
Yeah. So I put my arm around for a photo, and this person was claiming that I made them because of the force of my arm going around their head for the photo that I made them deaf. They'd been to the doctor, and they said, "Yeah, you're deaf in one ear."
Did you only touch one?
I put my arm round. So basically, they were claiming that I made them deaf in my book signing. So anyway, went to lawyers. And basically it went on for about 6 or 7 months, and eventually it was dropped.
But you know what that shows? I mean, look,
there's days I wish you'd touch me on the ear.
I tell you, the serious point there is when you're high profile, you are the target of what has become a very litigious society. So,
what society?
People who want to sue you.
Yeah.
Final topic this week is sporting mums, and I want to say, as a son of a mother who was the most supportive, loving, incredible mentor to me growing up. My dad had come from India to the UK, faced terrible racism at work. In order to get promoted, he did a degree in his part-time. He didn't have time to take us to training or to table tennis competitions. My mum filled in. She had my brother when she was 16, me when she was 18, my sister when she was 23. Very young mum, huge amount of responsibility. But she mentored us. She loved us when we won. She loved us when we lost. She gave great advice. She was a psychologist. She made our packed lunches. She went up and down the M4 and the M1. But I was very conscious that most of my rivals had fathers who were mentoring them. And I think back then, a lot of people thought that was quite a natural thing. And it was unusual for a mother to be mentoring two sports-mad boys. And it made me think, actually, later in life about Judy Murray and the experiences that she's had, having mentored and coached and helped Jamie and Andy, and the hostility she faced. She got poison pen letters at home. She would get hurled insults on the streets, and it really affected her confidence. And it took her a long time to try and convince the British public that you can be a mother, you can be strong, you can be a fantastic influence on your children, and it doesn't mean they're tied to the apron strings for one moment. And I just wanted to sort of put it out there and see what your two thoughts are on this, that I think there is still some residual sexism in sport. You get it in sports journalism. If women ask questions at a football press conference, there can be a bit of an atmosphere. Chris Gale propositioned a female journalist during an interview. I think there's still a bit of that, and I wanted to do a shout out to the women in sport, the mums, the journalists, and everybody else. They do an amazing job, and I think it's still very difficult.
When you was a kid and all the other kids had the dads there and you had your mum there, what did you think?
Well, for me, it was the only thing I'd ever experienced, and I had huge appreciation for her because we wouldn't have been able to pursue our dream without her being involved, and the sacrifices she made. She had virtually no life of her own. I mean, you guys know what it's like. They're a taxi driver. They do everything for you. You're a vulnerable person, and without that support, without that person ploughing a road for you to walk down, it never happens. But it was odd. My dad just didn't have the time to come. He loved us very much. He was very committed. He financed our table tennis career, and it was expensive. But he just couldn't come along. And so we were with our mother the whole time. And it was, later in life, I could see that people looked down on her a bit. They looked down on us a bit because our father wasn't there. But, what was your experience? How was your dynamic with your...
Just on Judy Murray.
Yes.
Right, I know Judy Murray. She's been on the League of Her Own a couple of times. I get on well with her. She's lovely. But what do you think, because she's been on Strictly.
Yeah.
She's put her head above the parapet.
Yes.
Where she's out there, on the back of her son.
Yeah.
So, where do you stand on that? I know you said there's no excuse for poison pen letters and nasty stuff on social media. Unfortunately, that is a fact of life.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, then you've got to take the rough with the smooth a little bit.
Yeah.
Whether you should or not. But where do you stand on that?
Yeah.
Is your mum going to do Strictly?
No, she's not.
Would she have liked to have...
No, she was a very self-effacing person. Funnily enough, Judy, early in the career of Jamie and Andy, she would be asked to do speeches and to go to coach conferences. Her confidence was so fragile because of the animosity that was coming her way, she would turn it down. The turning point, there were two, she said, Strictly, when people began to see who she really was, and also when...
I thought she was lovely.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Yeah,
was you on with
her
her?
at the same time?
No, but I watched it. She was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest,
she's very human.
I like
the image of her was harsh, severe. She's a really wonderful
I thought that. I thought that because you see it on thing, don't you, in crowd, and you think if Andy don't win this game, he's getting no tea when he gets home tonight, isn't he? But that's what you thought.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like hard, wasn't she?
But
And then she came on League of Their Own.
Yeah.
And I don't mind saying they go through the guests, and there's some I'm happier with than others.
Yeah.
I mean, Judy Murray, really.
Yeah.
And then she came on. She was brilliant.
Yeah.
She mucked in with all the games. She got involved. She was just charming.
And she's
and I
funny,
felt
isn't she?
bad.
Yeah.
Because the public opinion had
Yeah.
swayed what I thought about her, and she's absolutely lovely.
But don't
I had
you
her on
think
my
I-
radio show
yeah.
when I did a 5 Live show. She was talking about sports games. To be fair, I wasn't that. The games were a bit rubbish, playing table tennis on table in the kitchen with a tin of beans. But she was absolutely, she was lovely, and I now follow her on Twitter. I see her around the traps every now and then, and I really like her.
And she's funny. Her
But it just
humour's
shows
on
how
Twitter.
you can get.
Well, let me
swayed,
say,
you and John Terry.
Well, here, check this out. I think the media should take some responsibility for that, because every time she would be on the front page of a newspaper, it would be baring her teeth, and the implication was she's not feminine. I think you can be feminine and determined.
Look at Robbie.
Yeah, exactly.
So my mum, Matthew, obviously my mum couldn't drive. My father used to take me everywhere. We spoke about parents and sport.
Yeah.
You're talking about mothers. So my mum obviously was at home, food. She'd be the one who looked after us as a family, because my dad went out to work, and mum would be there all the time. She'd be the shoulder to cry on. She would be the one to put an arm around me. Do you know what I mean? The type of person that if I was naughty in the day, she'd wait till your father gets home, and then she would. Then she wouldn't tell him. I said, please, mum, don't tell Dad. She would then. She wouldn't tell him, and it got on so well. But to the point, Matthew, where my football career, because of my own fault at times, and because of the press, and because I was this pantomime villain, she used to love going to watch me play football. And she would travel around the country with my father.
Right.
But it come to a point when it was after the 1999 Cup final, which she went to, and then because of all the negative press I got, and because of all the Afghan hound and people called me all kinds of names, from that moment on. Seriously, yeah. I was called a rabid Afghan hound by a man in a newspaper.
But
this is a journalist, isn't it?
Yeah, you're laughing at that.
It's totally unfair, but that Afghan hound, it's kind of like the barnet,
I did look like one, yeah. I did look like one. I'll be honest with you.
He didn't have rabies, though.
So from that moment on, Matthew, my mother would go with my father in the car to watch to the game for his support, because she didn't like him driving X amount of miles around the country on his own, but he loved watching me play. So mum would go and support him in the car, to the point where after that 1999 final, she would get out with my father. He would go into the pub for a pint. She would go with and say that mum doesn't drink. And then when the game kicked off, she would walk around the stadium with a cigarette, and she would not go and
because
watch.
she was too nervous to watch.
Did she not watch?
Not watch me. She went to support my dad, but she wouldn't watch me because of the people being horrible.
Yeah.
All the negativity, everybody's singing nasty things about her son.
Yes.
So her support mechanism was for my father, but to watch me, she couldn't watch me.
And I can imagine that can't be any more difficult than to hear people abusing the person.
The son.
Yeah.
But then after the game, you would never know. She would say, "How did you play?" And I knew it would really, really hurt her.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little boy still. She still calls me the little one.
It's amazing how much you draw on that love, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a young person.
Yeah, so
it's an amazing thing. Freddie, sorry, did you want to say
so?
something?
But growing up because my father managed my first football team, Mum after the game would get all the kit up.
Yeah.
She would take it home, wash it, put it on the old washing line in the back garden. There'd be 20 strips hanging up, all prepared, all done next week. She'd help me clean my boots in the cold. Dad'd be at work, and my mum would help me do all that kind of stuff. We underestimate how great they are. They're amazing.
Well, it's like your dads take all the glory, don't they? Because it's that identifiable thing where cricket or my dad played on a weekend. I got into it because of my dad. But my mum was there all the time.
Yep.
My mum did the teas with my nan, who, bless her's not with us now, who I miss. I've never really thought about it, and actually feeling a bit guilty now. Because, all right, your dad, the cricket, I'm sure that came from him, and the passion and all that. But the emotional support came from my mum.
Yeah.
If I'd had a bad day when I was a kid or something,
Mum's always there.
Mum I'd go for a cuddle with.
Always there.
Unconditional love.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to get terrible nightmares, and it's my mum who lies with me on the bed till I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then she was at all the matches. She travelled around everywhere with my dad. She couldn't drive like your mum Val. So she was in the car all the time. She slept in the car when my dad slept in the car. She went round the country. She washed me whites.
Yeah.
And some of the other stuff that they've been through, like you mentioned, you got abuse from the crowd. In cricket, that doesn't really happen. The stuff I got, I brought on myself a little bit. When someone's writing about you in a newspaper or you're getting hammered, you get so wrapped up in what it's doing to you, you almost lose sight a little bit of the knock-on effect of
great point.
How it's affecting your family as well. Imagine like a mother reading about the son who's done this, that and the other, or someone's sold a story on him, or a reporter's done a sting on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it must be awful. So I think mums in general, they don't get, they don't get the credit. Because I'll be honest with you, I reckon my mum wanted a daughter. She had my brother, and she would have loved a daughter. I see what she's like.
Two sons.
Well, yeah. I'm a son.
Yeah,
my brother.
But you didn't have any other.
No.
My mum was the same. She wanted me to be.
She'd love to a daughter. Yeah, same with me, I'm sure. Because I see what she's like with my daughter Holly, and she's like the one that she always wanted.
Yeah.
Because she's had boys, and she's lived in a house where there's two lads who then became two blokes. My dad. Yeah. All it is all the time is sport.
How did she feel about it? Did she enjoy watching you play cricket?
She used to go and watch,
Did she?
She loved the hospitality. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Because it's like going back to Judy Murray a little bit, and mums in general, and my mum, is that everyone talks about families and giving opportunities and the time that your family invest in what you do.
Yeah.
And it is an investment in a lot of ways. Where you're my dad, my mum, my brother, to some degree. That why should they not get some of the nice stuff?
Quite.
And I think
why should they not come and watch the cricket and get a day in hospitality?
I think
why should Judy Murray not write a book? Why should she not go and have a dance on telly? Why not?
I think as well, also mums, we're talking about family, brothers or sisters.
Yes.
Like growing up,
yeah.
You imagine being successful sportsman in a house, and for me, my godbrother called Jonathan, the eldest brother, he's so happy for me. But you think
no jealousy at all.
No, but that's what I'm saying. So for my mum and dad to obviously they love their sons equally.
Yep.
But I just couldn't imagine what it'd be like for my brother.
Like a juggling act, isn't it?
Yeah, juggling act. So 1 minute you've got both successful in what we do, but you've got this guy with all the adulation and he's in the public eye, and he's in the newspapers when you're 15, 16. Look at this boys at Manchester United. Then you got your brother who's cycling to work 10 miles.
Did he play football?
No, he's an engineer. Cycling to work 10 miles there, 10 miles back in the pouring rain. Yet the other son is getting all these headlines in the paper and he's going on this great journey.
Yeah.
So the juggling out for parents is unbelievable. So for mum to treat my brother exactly the same is a credit to parents and my brother as well. And I'm sure you're.
How does it work with you?
Wait, my brother. My brother's what? He's 40. I should know. 42 or 43. And he went to school. He played cricket when he was young. To be fair to him,
that was good. He went to school, wasn't it?
Yeah, he went
nice
more
of
than
him.
me. But back time.
That was nice. We got to school then. Well done.
Let him go. Mondays and Wednesdays. So he went. He was good cricket when he was younger. Really good cricket. And who knows? But whether he wasn't into it as much, or didn't have the opportunity, or didn't have the break, who knows? But he went to school, went to university. I remember, I started earning money at 16, 17. He was a student. Germany's 1.1 Fiesta. Working at a bookshop, working wherever he can to pay his way through student. And me, although I wasn't on fortunes, relatively speaking, to the rest of the group of friends I knocked around with, I was doing really well. So it was hard, you're going out with your brother and he's got no, and he's racking up a student loan, and I want to pay for everything. And how does that make your brother feel? And then for the bulk of my career, when I was half decent, he lived in Japan. And then you think, well, was that because... a lot of things put on your mind. Is that because he didn't want to... I don't know. He's so supportive.
Do you know what the nicest thing is now, though?
I think it is... I've got an older brother, 2 years older than me. He's a fantastic table tennis player, #1 in England for his age group. He got injured in his late teens, couldn't play table tennis anymore. I think there was a little period where he wasn't quite reconciled to the fact that I was still playing and he couldn't. And it was a bit tense. Then he got over it. He remembered that we were incredibly close, and we are now best friends. And towards the end of my career, he would come and coach and help, and it's just such an amazing support. And you're right about the parents. For them, getting the balance between Andy and me, and I actually do have a younger sister, when it was very dominated by sport, was very difficult, but they did it brilliantly.
The nicest thing is now, though, for me, I'm sure, Freddie, and for you, Matthew, is the position that we found ourselves in through our careers, whether it's contacts, whether it's good friends, whether it's people you know, whether it's financial. Listen, you've earned a few quid in a position where you can give stuff back to
fantastic
to your brother and to your family, and that for me is the most pleasing thing.
Can I sort of move it on to the other thing that I mentioned, just to get your take on this, which is the level of sexism that still exists towards women in sport in this context? If you look at female sports journalists on Twitter, they get hammered, particularly the football ones. How can a woman dare to say anything about the game? Do they know what the offside rule is? And this dynamic of women being marginalised when it comes to understanding sport, and some of the really horrible things they have to endure at press conferences and in the sort of digital space, I think that's a real problem. Robbie?
Well, I'm with you, Matthew. One of my best relationships was with Janine Self.
Yeah.
Janine wrote my book.
Did she?
Because her knowledge of football, her knowledge of me, she was the Midlands reporter.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't think of anybody better to write my book than Janine Self.
Gender didn't matter to you. You wanted the best writer.
Of course, the best writer. And Janine covered Midlands football, absolutely magnificent. And I had put my faith in her to write my book, and it done really well. So it doesn't matter about the gender. As long as they do their job correctly, do it well, who cares?
And I think things are changing, aren't they? I think that it's much worse 10, 15 years ago.
Sorry, Fred. On a show in the afternoon, BT Sports Score, we had Alex Scott, we've had Kelly Smith, one of the best players in the women's game. She was magnificent. She's magnificent. She's knowledgeable. She talks about football in a passionate way. Doesn't matter what gender. And I think times are changing, and for the good.
Well, I think the only thing you can take in that is getting better. You've seen people get hammered. There's a woman on Twitter called Legside Lizzie who loves the cricket, and she gets hammered on Twitter. You've seen Test match special. You've got Alison Mitchell, who's out there. You've got Ishiguro, who does Sky cricket now and things. So I think it is getting better. Yeah. But unfortunately, it's not my opinion, but just being realistic, it's something which isn't going to change overnight. Yeah. Because sport, let's be honest, the sport I played is a male-dominated world. Yeah. It has been. Yeah. And now, what we're seeing is, which is brilliant for cricket, is that the girls now, they've gone professional. They're getting paid. They've got their own T20 competition. Australia have got the Women's Big Bash, which is taking it even further. Yeah. So you've got these girls now playing sport, which, rather than, you think of a girl and role model's going to be a pop singer or an actress or something. And a bloke is going to be a footballer, a cricketer, a rugby player. Where it's changing now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think girls have got sports people they look up to. They hear voices within sport talking about it. Yeah. So I think it's becoming more accessible.
And you look at the FA Cup final, Matthew. The women's FA Cup final, 34,000 at Wembley. Magnificent. Magnificent.
And, you see five-a-side games, you see women playing. My daughter Evie, she's only 4, but her sports day is at the end of June. And I'm really looking forward to watching her do that. That it's something that she can grow in. She have role models that she can admire and look up to. And this idea that you can be feminine, but you can run hard, you can train hard, you can be competitive. Jessica Ennis, what a fantastic role model she is.
But then I watch my boys play cricket, and obviously you do as well, Rob, with my two. And you play against some teams, and there might be one girl in the opposing team. And out of all the players on the pitch, I've got more respect for that one girl. Can you imagine, being a lad and going playing a woman's sport, or being the one bloke in a dressing room where you got the girl, she just thinks, you know what, I like cricket, I want to play cricket, and she's brave enough. And I think rather than harping on about women in sport and they get a bad deal, let's focus on the positives. Yeah. Let's focus on that girl who's playing in a boys' football team, right, for the Dragons. Lucy played for the Dragons. You've got a girl playing. Yeah. Let's focus on that. Let's push that rather than be negative about it.
Like it.
You are going to get cynicism, and you're going to get what happened with Keys and Gray when they were talking about the lineswoman. Yeah. So let's focus on the good bits of it. There are girls out there playing. There's great sporting role models for girls. Let's celebrate that, because that's the way in which women's sport is going to catch up.
In a funny kind of a way, I think that argument can be made about racism too. I think it's a positive story of how things are changing. We hang up on the negative so much, it undermines the momentum. Mental health,
everything.
Which is, some of the points you made there, I think that's really, really powerful. Guys, I think that was one of the best shows we've done.
Well, you say that every week, Matthew.
Do I?
Oh, we're getting better.
For now, from all of us, Goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.